Hi, so it has been a minute. Sorry about that. Basically, the reason I was gone, not the most exciting thing for you all, but I was finishing up grad school. I did a 1,000-hour teaching residency that just ended at the end of June, and because of that, not a lot of time to read, and definitely not a lot of time to make any videos. But yeah, really want to get back into reading very consistently, which I think should happen because since my residency is over, I've read 2 books, which is more than I have been reading. So, I'm going to be talking to you about the 7 books I've read so far this year. Unfortunately, one singular 5-star book. I don't know what is going on. I feel like every booktuber I watch has been having kind of a floppy year, a reading slump year, or even just the past month or two. It's not been great. I would agree. My reading year, probably the worst reading year I've had since I started paying attention to what I was reading. So I think that was 2019. We'll see how this goes. Obviously, it's going to be a little rusty, just getting back into the swing of things, but I'll talk to you about the books I read, and of course, please give me recommendations based on what I say in this video, or just based on books that you really enjoy. Obviously, still working out some kinks with the microphone too, so if it sounds really too much gain happening, I'll fix it by the next video. So the first book I'm going to talk about, I read at the very beginning of the year because I had finally gotten back on the Bridgerton train. There's a particular scene in season 1 of the series that really rubbed me the wrong way, and I immediately stopped watching the show. But then season 2 happened, and it was a little while after season 2 where I was like, Kate and Anthony, they do look like they have some chemistry that I was into. So I asked the people of Twitter, and I said, can I watch that season 2 without watching season 1? And they said, yes, absolutely. In fact, I would recommend it. So that is what I did. I caught up on season 2, and then I watched Queen Charlotte. Could simply not remember what it was called. Anyways, watched that, absolutely loved it. And I was like, I love Penelope Featherington and Nicola Coughlan, so I need to get that fixed immediately. So I read Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This is not my original copy. I have the original paperback copy that I read, but then once the series came out, I bought this copy and just passed along my original copy to a friend. I was going to donate it, but she was interested in reading it, so I was like, cool. Okay. I am both disappointed in the book and in the show. And I am glad that I'm not the only person who thinks this way. There's a few reasons why. I feel like this is going to be more a review of this series than it is of the book itself. And I'm okay with that. The book, my critiques of it, there were some spicy scenes, and I'm not all about spice in my books at all. I wish there was a little more, actually, which is not something I usually say after reading romance. I think I just really like the idea of these 2 characters together, and I was sad we didn't see more of that, which is also a critique I have of the Netflix series, so interesting. I thought it was okay. I mean, I've heard that the books originally have a lot of misogyny in them, and this definitely has that kind of aspect into it. I can't remember really specific instances, but basically Colin is really insecure, and he makes it everyone's issue. Get over it. I'm sorry, you're a man. Just not saying men can't be insecure, but in this case, it's about writing. I'm you have all the privilege in this situation. Anyway, so that kind of bothered me a little bit. It was kind of in the show, he was also insecure about it, but there was nothing stopping him in that show from publishing his work. So anyways, back and forth on the show and the book. Basically, it was fine. I wished it was better, and I felt that way about the show also, which is a little disappointing because Penelope is my favorite character. So yeah, it was a little bit of a downer, but I mean, it wasn't terrible. I think I gave this a 3-star. I can't remember if it was 3 or 3.5, but I liked aspects of it. It just wasn't great. It didn't blow my socks off. It honestly is pretty long. It's 460, 470 pages, and I was like, did we need all of that? But also I wish there was more. Just was not very satisfying. Not being satisfied is a common theme throughout these books, which maybe is some introspection I should do. Maybe I'm too picky. Maybe I want too much from what I'm reading. Okay, so the next book I read really stems from my love of this particular character. I read A Study in Scarlet. It's a Sherlock Holmes story by Arthur Conan Doyle. Of course, it's the original. I thought I just saw a spider, but I think it was like a fuzzy floating around. Anyways, so I have mixed feelings on this. I didn't really like this. Now, I love a detective, especially in a period setting. I love it. Give it to me. I don't care if it was written contemporary back then and it just seems historical now. I eat it up, okay? I love it. So I was like, I have this copy of A Study in Scarlet. I think I got it used for like literally $1. And I was like, why don't I just read it? I have a big bind up over there, as you can see, the book I'm pointing to. But this is a lot more easy for my hands to read. I have like residual carpal tunnel from playing flute, and paperbacks I'm finding with my old age of 23 years are much easier for me to read. So that's what I've been enjoying lately. This copy in particular, I was like, oh, it's like an old copy, like I have it, I might as well read it. Like, I don't know, it was on a whim. I was like, it's really short, it'll probably take me like a weekend to read. And it did, but it wasn't very good. The first half of the book, really atmospheric. I kind of like know the little story beats based on like adaptations I've seen, whether it be like old ones that are just on the TV or the like BBC adaptation of it, which is a little cringy looking at it now, but at the time I really loved it. And just like other adaptations as well. Basically, I kind of like knew the beats and where we were going, but the second half of the book, what on earth was happening? The whole time I was sat there like, what are we doing? I don't know what's going on. But I do think I got some good stuff out of it. I honestly read the book because I'm writing a story that's heavily inspired kind of like by the Sherlock Holmes tropes. So I read it and I was like, how did these catch on? Because I was not feeling it at all. The first half of the book is like the typical like, oh, we're in London and like there's a crime, someone dies, we're trying to figure out what goes on, as one does in a murder mystery. But then the second half, it's like we're in America, I don't know what's happening. I felt like silly goofy and I didn't really know what was happening, even though I was literally reading the shortest book on the planet over the course of like 2 days. So that's probably my fault. I didn't love it though, but I did buy another Sherlock Holmes like standalone binding, and I do think I'm gonna keep going because the parts of this that I did like, I really liked. I think I only gave this like a 2.5 star though, because I was like, you're kidding. But it was fine. The next book I read was A Sea of Strangers, which is a poetry collection. I no longer have it on my shelves, which should kind of indicate to you how I felt about it. I'll put a picture up here. Obviously, it's probably already there. Did not care for this at all. I am not the biggest fan of poetry in general. I don't think I'm in a point at my life where I relate to poetry on like a spiritual, emotional, relatable level. I just don't think, how should I say this? I think some poetry works better than others for me when it is specifically about relationships or trauma. I don't know that it works as well for me as if it were philosophical, like, or about like natural environment, if that makes sense. This didn't really work for me at all. I know it's a very popular author, so I figured I would send it to the thrift store. It's in a stack over there, but basically it wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it. If you like basically the poetry that I said I didn't care for, I would definitely pick this up. I know again that she's a really popular author and this poetry seems to work better for a lot of people, but again, it's of kind of like that rupee car variety that I just personally don't connect with at all. I gave it 1 star and I don't really feel bad about it because I know a lot of other people like it. It just doesn't work for me. The next book that I read I also do not have, but not because I didn't enjoy it, it's just I read it at a library. It is The Tea Dragon Society by Kay O'Neill. This was cute and lovely. I think I gave it like a 3.5 star. It didn't really do anything spectacular to me personally, though I've only read the first installation, so like the first book in this little graphic novel series. We follow Greta, who kind of finds this little tea dragon society. She makes her place in this world of mythical creatures and also caring for like the people around her and this little found family she has, though like her own family is not someone she's estranged from, which I kind of enjoyed that aspect. So that was really lovely. It's queer. The art is so beautiful. I really loved it. My only complaint is that I wish there was a little more substance. Not that I think it didn't have any. I just kind of wished I got a little more of a taste of what we were doing in this first book, though obviously it is a series of little graphic novels, so I am interested to keep reading, though I think the library is the way to go for these for me until I decide if I'm really loving them, and then I'll make the decision whether I want to purchase them. I don't know if they have like a bind up copy. That would definitely be something that I would probably do over the individual books, but also the individual books are really cute, and I don't think that I have much to say about this other than I really enjoyed it and I'm interested to look at more, but I'm not like itching to read it, like I need to read it now. You know what I mean? Okay, so the next book I read is A Marvellous Light by Freya Marski. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce this author's last name, so I really truly do apologize. I've tried to look it up and have gotten no substantial conclusive answer. So this was kind of my attempt to see if I could get into fantasy again. Those of you who remember anything from this channel from 9 months ago know that it's not really a genre I read. Not really a big fantasy fan in the written media form. I prefer visually to consume fantasy. So like movies or TV shows, great. A book with a bunch of words, not exactly my strongest area. So I was like, maybe if I consume something that's supposed to be like lighter fantasy, it will work for me. And the answers is inconclusive, okay? I don't know if this worked for me. It kind of did. I really liked some aspects of it, and I do think that the magic system was interesting and honestly didn't tell me a lot, but I enjoyed that. I didn't like having to be like, wait, but that's not possible because XYZ. I don't care. I do not care. Hey, guess what? Don't care. So I kind of really enjoyed that it was kind of light. I didn't really have to pay too much attention to the logic of the magic system. I know that a lot of readers that bothers them. They like to know all the ins and outs of the world that they're reading in. I'm not one of those people. I prefer more like atmospheric storytelling and character-driven plots, which this definitely had, so I really liked that. My issue with this, so I should say now, I gave this a light 4-star because I read this almost unethically, one would say. I read this in probably 3 or 4 sittings that were weeks apart. Hey, don't recommend doing that when you're reading a novel. I did read a huge chunk of this on a family weekend getaway. I wouldn't even necessarily call it vacation because it was for someone's job. But we did stay in a hotel and it was very lovely, but the entire time it was snowing and I was like, ooh, this is kind of cozy. I almost wish I brought a murder mystery with me, you know, like an isolated close circle moment. But, well, I didn't do that. So I had this book with me, but I was really, really enjoying it, honestly. So I'm going to read the back because I honestly don't want to give too much away. And I feel like it'll recap it better than me, like trying to dig through my mind to remember everything. So let's go. Robin Blythe has more than enough brother in his life. He's struggling to be a good older brother when an administrative mistake sees him named the civil service liaison to a hidden magical society. He discovered what's been operating beneath the unextraordinary reality he's always known. Now Robin must contend with the beauty and the danger of magic, an excruciating deadly curse, and the alarming visions of the future that come with it, not to mention Edwin Corsi, his cold and prickly counterpart in the magical bureaucracy, who clearly wishes Robin were anyone and anywhere else. Robin's predecessor has disappeared, and the mystery of what happened to him reveals unsettling truths about very oldest stories that they've been told about the land they live on and what binds it. Thrown together and facing unexpected dangers, Robin and Edwin discover a plot that threatens every magician in the British Isles and a secret that more than one person has already died to keep. So as you can tell, hijinks, mild mystery afoot, light magic system, I am all here for it. And I genuinely really did enjoy this. The romance, spoiler alert, it's not really a spoiler at all, but I'll just say it is. The two main characters, they have like this beautiful budding romance, and I actually really liked it. Like, I was like, why is this better than the past couple romance books I've read? Like, it was really good. My only complaint is that it's very long, and at certain points, it's actually not really that long. It's less than 400 pages. I don't know why I'm like old. I'm like, oh, it's so long. It's not really. I was just very busy, and I was really struggling to read this. This is one of those books that I'm like, dang, I really wish I read under different circumstances because I did enjoy it when I was reading it. But I unfortunately don't think I'm going to continue on in the series. I think this does kind of work as a standalone, and I currently have no interest in reading the other two books. Additionally, I just don't like series unless you can read the books as standalones or they're mysteries. Those are like generally the two exceptions to that for me. So overall, liked this. Would definitely check this author out for a standalone, but that's where I'm going to leave it. Okay, so the next book I have is Most Ardently, which was one of my most anticipated books of the year. And I'm happy to say it did not disappoint. I gave this book 4.5 stars, and I really, really liked it. I absolutely devoured it. I think I read it in 2 afternoons. I probably could have read it in a single day, though. Some commotion for the cover, also. I love this artist, and it was honestly one of the reasons why I found this book. Most Ardently is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. It's part of the Remixed Classic series. On the back of the book, it has some of the other ones listed. It's kind of everything. Like, not to be that person, it's so good. It's basically Pride and Prejudice, but make it trans MLM. And it's fantastic. Basically, if you know Pride and Prejudice, you know what's going on in here. There's obviously a little bit of a different dynamic. We're dealing with two characters who are part of the LGBTQ plus community historically, and also dealing with a trans main character whose point of view we are reading from. Oliver, that's the main character. He does get misgendered and dead named quite a few times in this book, so if that is something that really bothers you and you can't read it, I would maybe pass this one or just brace yourself for that before you read it. But otherwise, honestly, this was so good. Like, I was reading this, I was like, where's the adaptation? I would like to see it. I do think the discussion of masculinity in here was like particularly interesting in this period setting. Anyways, this is just really light, joyful. It's young adult. The font is kind of huge, and for that I was very thankful. So yeah, 4.5 stars was great. Really enjoyed it. If this author wrote an adult book, I would read it in an instant. The next book I read is going to be a controversial one, y'all, particularly for my feelings on it. It is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. I've not read from this author before. I've heard literally incredible things, and my critiques of this is not necessarily with the plot, the characters, even necessarily the prose, more so with the pacing. I have another book by this author, their book, The Death of Vivek OG. I am very interested in reading that book, particularly because it is a little bit of an older audience. But my issue again with this was honestly the pacing. The pacing was excruciating to me, which I know people might see this book and be like, it's like just over 200 pages. How could the pacing be an issue? It just was for me. I know it is not for the vast majority of readers. A ton of people love this book, and I love what this book was doing, what it was saying. I love the characters. I love the plot. The pacing just ruined it for me. So I will read the premise to you. Pet is here to hunt a monster. Are you brave enough to look? There are no monsters anymore. Oh, so the children of the city of Lucille have been taught. Jem and her best friend, Redemption, have grown up with this lesson all their lives. But when Jem meets Pet, she begins to question what she's been told. Pet has come to hunt the evil lurking in Redemption's house. But how do you save the world from monsters if no one will admit they exist? And like, premise, excellent. The execution of the premise, pretty good, pretty solid. The pacing, deadly to me. I don't know what happened. This book took me months to read, to the point where I literally one night was like, I just need to finish this to get it over with, because I was intrigued enough with what was happening that I wanted to keep reading it and not DNF it. But again, like, it just, the pacing, something happened and I was not enjoying it at all. I said in my review on Goodreads that I wish this was either a short story or developed into a longer novel, because I think that actually, weirdly enough, would have fixed some of the issues with the pacing for me personally, though I am not sure how popular of an opinion that is, because this has really high ratings on Goodreads, and kind of talking about like corruption of power within art, but also just like how art can be kind of this void for trauma and life experiences and beauty and joy. And I really liked it. Again, another trans main character who I absolutely loved to read from. Again, pacing really just, I didn't enjoy it. I gave that book a 2.5 stars, so my only 5-star read of the year. And that is In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. This book, to me, is so good, but I do not know if it would work for other people. I think we might be having the opposite of a Pet situation, where I don't have an issue with the pacing here, but other people might, if that makes sense. We're following 2 childhood longtime friends who both have feelings for each other, but are obviously living during the era pre and slightly post World War I. So we're, I think, starting in 1913-ish and heading until, I believe, the book ends in 1919. We kind of talk about war, how it's really unforgiving. At risk of sounding like I'm quoting Hamilton, it's like indiscriminate in who it kills and who it affects, and basically the terrors of war. It also is talking about like camaraderie, about relationships made in war, about how they can change for the people who go together, the people who are separated, the families you leave behind, all of that stuff. I always get nervous reading books about war because glorification of war is something so common, but once I knew we were dealing with kind of a queer narrative, I was like, okay, I feel like this will have like actual commentary about war, and it definitely did. Basically, Henry Gaunt and Sidney Elwood are longtime friends. They go to the same kind of upper class British boarding school together. One is of partial German descent, the other is of partial Jewish descent, though they both grew up and live in London. It's a tumultuous love affair. What can I say? It's literally just so good. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but like, whenever I opened this book, I was absolutely transported, like emotionally, in almost like a physical reaction. The scenes describing war are really gruesome and graphic, but not contemplative. It's contemplative about war, but not about the gore of war. Like, a character will die and then we'll be moving on. Next sentence. You don't have time to contemplate about it when you're in the battle, and that's kind of how it felt in here. I didn't feel comfortable about the situation between our 2 main characters until the very end of the book. Basically, there's like miscommunication, but it's historically accurate, so that doesn't bother me at all. 2 longtime friends go to war. It's about their point of views and their experience of it, and it's absolutely wonderful, and I really recommend it. I don't know what else to say because it was just so good, and I think everyone should read it. And those are the books I've read so far this year. I've actually started reading, it's right above me, right up here, Everyone on This Train is a Suspect. It's a sequel to Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, so it's an author and structure I'm already familiar with, so I'm excited to crack into that a little bit more. There's so many books on my shelves I need to read, but I'm also moving soon, so it'll kind of be exciting to see what I do with all these books and how I transport them, and if I'm gonna do a huge unhaul or if I'm gonna keep some at home and take some with me. We'll see. Until next time.